successful. Come watch our show. Bet with the sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Welcome aboard, everyone. It's Betting Weekly Live. It's Friday the 14th of February. How's your week been? I'm with Lewis Jones today, Premier League handicapper and expert. Were you involved in the midweek European matches? I thought the Conference League was absolutely bonkers yesterday, Lewis. There were some crazy results across the board.
Oh, Thursdays are always one I try to stay clear of. I need a bit of a break during the week in terms of the football, relentless football schedule, Steve. So Thursdays are my day where I tend to steer clear, but most definitely involved in the Champions League in the midweek. Yeah, Manchester City, same old story, wasn't it? Nothing seems to change there. Worries for them, I think, still, even though they've been quite busy in January. There's something just not right at that. With the way they're structured out of possession, and I think there's just lots of mental scarring going on now for them in terms of what's happened this season. So they're just a team to completely fade, I think, in the betting. I'm sure we'll mention them when we get on to looking at the weekend card a little bit later, because they are, again, just as most weeks, they're very much the centre of my attention for trying to take them on in the market. How are you? Anyway, happy Valentine's Day to you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I forgot.
It is Valentine's Day, isn't it? Of course.
You even mentioned the date as well. It just completely slipped your mind. That's
you know what? That completely slipped my mind. But yes, happy Valentine's Day. There's no place I'd rather be than with you here, me and you together on Betting Weekly Live. And
exactly.
Welcome into the chat
I've splashed a bit of Brute on as well. I've got my lucky and my best pants on, so I'll come prepared for the occasion, Steve. But you've completely forgot it was Valentine's Day, so I feel a little bit.
No, I didn't. Yeah, it just slipped my mind like momentarily. Just welcoming everyone. Cree says he always gets Brighton wrong, but he's gone with them. Draw no bet. We're going to talk about the Brighton game very soon. Byron's on about Chelsea. Team total overs as well. Paul Laguna, good to see you. And it was rough a little bit yesterday, certainly Conference League. Like I said, I'll give a big shout out to the Icelandic side, Vikingur, and Shamrock Rovers. That was the best I've ever seen an Irish side play in Europe. That league actually starts today, the League of Ireland. I was really close just to betting on them outright to win it at 2-1. Because if they play like that this season, they'll romp that league. That was by far the best I've ever seen an Irish side play. 16-year-old kid up front looks a real prospect for them who've got on the score sheet as well. What one in Stephen Boyle, player cam as well. Redan Code, welcome into the chat. Steve Cook, Rick Haley, Villa fan, good to see you as well. But yeah, we've got tons of comments already. Put your best bets in for the day. We're going to go through Chelsea visiting Brighton, several matches in Europe, English Championship, and of course, because Lewis is on the show, we'll pick his brains about a couple of bets about the Premier League weekend. But we do have to start, of course, with the big game of the day. It is in the Premier League. It is Brighton against Chelsea. The two teams met as early as last weekend in the FA Cup, and I thought it was a really poor game, to be honest, actually, Lewis. The first half especially hardly had a shot in it, despite a couple of goals. It was quite low tempo for a while. Brighton plus 188 now. They have been nibbled in compared to the graphic on there, which was created a couple of hours ago. Chelsea plus 128. Plus 148 now, Chelsea. They are a drifter today. Tie plus 235, over 2.5 goals, minus 177. How much relevance do you put on that FA Cup match from last weekend? Some people just think, oh, Brighton won last week, they can win this week. Both were going for the cup, so it probably has more relevance than normal, right? Or not?
I when sort of factoring in my analysis for this game, I didn't really use that much of that game in my thinking, if that makes sense, just because it is the FA Cup and just the way that Maresca was talking about the competition afterwards in the press conference, suggesting that he was borderline quite happy to be out of the cup, really, to be honest. That was the vibe I was getting from him in the press conference afterwards, and how they can now concentrate on the Premier League and the Conference League. So were Chelsea fully tuned up for that one? They've definitely played like they weren't. They were very timid and very lacked physicality. I thought didn't really seem up for
intensity wasn't there, was it?
Yeah, didn't really seem up for the game at all. So I think it'd be very different this evening, back in the Premier League, where they've got a job to do, haven't they, in terms of trying to get into the top four. Maresca's still been trying to play down their chances of the top four, saying they're a year ahead of schedule, etc. And he wouldn't be expecting the club to be qualifying for the Champions League this season. But I think with the way the season's going, this is a great opportunity for Chelsea, really, and the start they made, that they really should go and see this job through. So yeah, they need to get back on the horse, really, don't they? They need to get back in form, because they've only won 3 of the last 10 games, actually, which is really quite worrying for Maresca, I think. And I do think his style is becoming a little bit predictable now. And I was trying to think of comparisons, really, of how this Chelsea team remind me of previous Chelsea teams. And one did jump out at me. It was when Maurizio Sarri was in charge of Chelsea, where it was very sort of possession orientated, and just the key to their whole attacks was just to find Eden Hazard in that strategy. And it's very similar this time, I think, with the way they play. Very possession-based football, like to keep the ball, like to control things, and then they want to find Cole Palmer in the same sort of manner as that Sarri team did, as Hazard, because he is their tour de force, isn't he? He's the main man. He's the guy that makes things happen. And the reason I'm a little bit negative on them this evening, because I think actually he's been below par recently. He's been off form. So with him off form, Chelsea have been off form, I think, because if you look at just running his basic numbers in terms of goal output and goal involvement, since mid-December, he's only contributing a goal involvement every 268 minutes. And that's quite a stark contrast to the start of the season, where in the first 15 games, he was contributing a goal involvement every 76 minutes. So just with him a bit quiet at the moment, and maybe teams concentrating, stopping Palmer a little bit more by maybe man-marking him and certainly kicking him. He's been taking a lot of rough stuff this season in terms of how many fouls he's been winning and bookings that are sort of made on him. So I think Brighton probably will have a plan to stop Palmer tonight. I do think they're quite short here, Chelsea, but I don't really want to back Brighton. I do agree with the comment that came in earlier, actually. I don't really like backing Brighton in home matches. I mean, just look at some of the teams they failed to beat over the last sort of 2 seasons or so at home. Burnley, Sheffield United, Everton twice they failed to beat, Ipswich, Southampton, Brentford and Palace. I know this is a very different type of game against an elite opponent, but I just think they're a very flaky team to invest in, Brighton, and especially in forward areas. I wouldn't trust them to take chances or even create big enough chances to win consistently against a team like Chelsea. So in other words, it's a no bet for me, really, Steve, on all those sort of markets. But I do have one in the a bet I'm excited about in the props market. I'm sure we'll get onto it. Are you think Chelsea a bit short here?
I actually look at the odds today for this match and believe they're pretty accurate now. Plus 148 on Chelsea, plus 188 on Brighton. I think that's about right. Nothing would tempt me there. I agree with, I think a few people have said in the chat, and you've kind of alluded it to yourself, that Brighton are a very difficult side. I think in money line terms, and over-under is a little bit different because they've been involved in a lot more overs this season. 78% of the money is on Chelsea, 83% of the tickets are on Chelsea, which sounds a lot, but often in these sort of games, you'd expect maybe 90% or more on the big favourite. So that in itself suggests to me there's red flags that the bettors are not completely confident about Chelsea. 69% of the money is on the over, which I thought there'd be more on that. The biggest bet on the game with Bet Rivers is on the over 2.75 Asian total at minus 147, $15,000 bet. And, I watched the guys on the Premier League show, Nigel, Jack and Dan, and that's well worth a preview. Jack's got a pick on the game. Nigel's got an SGP on this game, actually. I think Jack was certainly alluding towards goals. I mean, over 2.5 goals at minus 177 now. I mean, I don't know if you're sort of better at those odds, Lewis, or not. You'd probably be looking at more of an Asian line yourself, wouldn't you? There, I'd be looking at the over 3 line, minus 110. Does that feel about fair, or would you be tempted to get involved with the goals at all, or even the under?
I'd rather back the overs than the unders, but again, the prices when we're talking about that sort of level of price is not really a bet that I would get involved with at those prices, just because you're at I do think you're at the mercy of a lot of things in a football match going wrong when you're playing those sort of prices, and can affect your bet quite massively, really, in terms of just a sending off or anything like that can affect things like that. So I wouldn't really play that short myself, but I could definitely see why people would want to latch on to the goals angle. But again, just to sort of go against that. It's the Brighton forward line which would worry me on that front as well. Just how flaky they are in attack. They do seem to they've got very high shots volume, Brighton. They take a lot of shots, but it's a lot of low quality shots that they produce. They're the 7th highest in the Premier League for the most shots taken this season, but their expected goals output is only the 15th highest. Which again, they should be quite consistent in terms of the amount of shots you're taking and your XG figure as well to go alongside it. And the XG per shot as well, that calculation is the 3rd worst in the Premier League. So again, just when it comes to betting on Brighton and trusting them when they are in these spots where they are, I mean, they're relatively fancy to get a result tonight. I would just steer clear of them and look elsewhere really for value in the market. Yeah.
I quite like teams that take a lot of shots. It's often a frantic nature. I do agree that it doesn't seem like it's very sensible in a lot of their cases, though, because they're not probably scoring as many as they should and low XG chances. But the amount of teams I've watched recently where I've been screaming at the screen, shoot. If you don't shoot, you don't score. So at least they've had some of that. We're struggling in the main markets here then, so we do look down the side markets for a bet. You're in the shots market. Who do you like?
Yeah, perfect setup there from you in terms of shots, because Brighton take a lot of shots, and I'm looking at an individual player here in the markets, and it's their defender, their fullback Tariq Lamptey, to have over 0.5 shots at plus 130. It's already shortened actually from a couple of hours ago, which was 6-4 earlier at plus 150. So I suppose that is the issue with these types of markets. Sometimes money can move the line quite significantly sometimes. So I'm hoping this price can hold, because I would probably back it anywhere up to even money would be probably my level where I'd back it to. I think it's got a really good chance tonight, this, and it's revolving around a sort of betting strategy I use almost backing blindly, really, when it happens when a fullback plays on the wrong side, if that makes sense. So a right footer playing on the left, or a left footer playing on the right. I just think the likelihood of that player having shots, it increases substantially, I think, with them liable to cut in onto their stronger foot towards goal instead of going down the outside onto their stronger foot. So just from that point of view, I'm always interested in these fullbacks that play on the wrong side. And the reason for the fullback fancy, okay, you can do it with wingers as well. But just in this case, the fullback shots data is always really low for these players. So the algorithms that price up these players in these markets always do it over sort of their long-term data in terms of how many shots they're having per 90, and it always chucks out a big price for these players in these kinds of markets. So I do think we can take advantage of that here and just give viewers some examples of past players that have been really great for shots bets like this. João Cancelo, when he played left back for Man City, was absolute gold mine for punters in the shots market. You got Kyle Walker-Peters as well at Southampton. He's a right footer that plays on the left. Sometimes his shot output always increases when he plays on the left. And there was Joe Gomez too last season. I think it was at Liverpool when he played left back, and he went from averaging 0.1 shots per game to nearly over 1.5. So these are the things I really look for in sort of the prop markets, these player position switches. And there's a really great case to make for Lamptey here, because this bet would have landed in 7 of his last 8 starts for Brighton anyway. And now I think he's played on the left in the last three games, including the game against Chelsea, where he did register a shot just from outside the box, where again he cut in onto his right foot. Things opened up a bit, and he let fly. So yeah, I like him as a player because he's very sort of direct, very attack minded, likes to get involved with his teammates in attack. He's just very dangerous, and I just think that price at plus money for him to register just 1 shot this evening does look a great shout. And if you're really, really looking to chance your arm at a price here, plus 1,800 to score for Lamptey as well, certainly worth a look, because from those 8 shots that I've mentioned, he's actually scored 3 times in that time. So he's showcased a sort of a real ability to stay calm in these situations, and has the quality to finish these chances. So yeah, the main bet and the main staking would be on the over 0.5 shots line for Lamptey at that price, but I wouldn't put people off having a little nibble at the big price on for him to score as well. So yeah, quite excited about watching Lamptey tonight, and hopefully he can cut in on this onto his stronger foot from the left-hand side and register a shot. And it only just needs to be a shot, Steve, doesn't it? It doesn't have to hit the target, can be blocked, can go straight to Brighton pier. It doesn't matter. As long as he's registered a shot and opt to define it as a shot action, then we get paid out. So yeah, and I'm quite confident on that tonight. Tariq Lamptey to have over 0.5 shots.
Imagine if it was a header. He's probably one of the smallest players on the field, but it would still
That'll
count.
That'll
It
do.
would still count. Of course. I mean, I remember the time I had him in my fantasy Premier League team maybe a couple of seasons ago because A, he was very cheap, and B, he actually has played on the wing quite a lot in his career in the past. So this is a player that's not naturally defensive. He knows his instinct is to shoot. So
yes.
I do like
a very
that
good point, actually. Very good point, actually. That would be like his previous. He has experience of playing further up the pitch as well, as you say. So that probably explains why he is quite cool in front of goal in terms of scoring 3 in his last 8. And I think he's a very much attack-minded fullback. He's not a defensive-minded player. So a lot going for us with this bet, better than even money tonight. So really like it, and just hopefully hopefully there's an early goal, game opens up, and lots of shots.
Just going through some comments here. Kosaibo Shane Mithrumenier, if I pronounced that correctly. Madueke to have a shot on target is the best bet today. He's often my go-to man for shots for Chelsea. You can actually get over 1.5 shots at -200 with Bet Rivers. That would be a parlay piece, perhaps, to add there. He just loves to. I think there's a player in him, actually. He could become really good. But I'm still not sure which direction he's going to go in. Dan Roebuck is on Brighton. He thinks they're massive value here. Tino bet or plus +1/4 goal. Paul Laguna says Cole Palmer's due to score. And I'm going to have to ask your opinion on Palmer here because there's been a few comments about him. +115 to score any time in this match. Is that a play or a fade for you, Lewis? Or, again, are we talking you wouldn't get involved in any direction?
It's not a bet for me. I think it's probably I would want to see him in better form at the moment before I start putting my faith back in him. But I think I'd rather take that price, quite a similar price to the Chelsea win, isn't it? Not too much in that, is there? I think I'd rather back Palmer to score any time than Chelsea to win the game, if that makes sense. I'd be more confident putting my faith in Palmer to create a bit of individual magic rather than the Chelsea team functioning and winning the game. So, I think that's about the right price, Palmer. But he's obviously a supreme talent, and this is why Maresca has decided to build his team around him, I think, with this style of football, because he is a world-class finisher. I think we can say that now about Palmer, and the fact he wasn't playing for England in the summer was it still grates me, actually, that he wasn't given more of a chance in that tournament. I mean, he came on in the final and made a difference, didn't he? I think he's a proper ruthless world-class finisher, and if you back him at plus money enough times, I think in the long term you probably will make money. So I would rather back him tonight to score than Chelsea to win. So I wouldn't put people off, but I do think the price is a little bit tight for a player that isn't in the peak of isn't sort of at the peak of his powers at the moment, I'd suggest.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I would, he's not the sort of player I'd ever want to be against because of his set piece ability as well. Just looking through again, where do you get your player prop stats from, says Player Cam. There's a couple of sites we mentioned before when James was asked about this. A couple of sites out there free to use. Who Scored isn't bad. FBrev isn't bad. Lewis, you might well be getting some of your stats from more elaborate sources. But is there anything you'd recommend out there for the wide range?
A plug for a website called Player Stats in the UK. Very simple name. It's a very simple formula they use to sort of show the stats that you're looking for, but it works a charm for my sort of research. So I'd give them a look, and luckily through my job at Sky, I do have a lot of access to the Opta feeds and the Opta data sources. So that's something which is probably a little edge I've got on other punters just because of the job and the line of work that I'm in. But check out Player Stats. Actually, I'm giving them a free plug here, obviously. But it's very. I think it's about $29.99 a month as well. So a year, annual. So they're a firm I use, and they seem to they tick all the boxes in terms of what I need from my when I'm just trying to quickly work out a shot, the averages and things like that. It's a very easy sort of database to use. So I'd give them that's be where I would go. They charge a little bit, but does the job for me.
Snacks Monster says up the Seagulls. I think Snacks Monster's quite a big Brighton fan off the top of my head. What's your prediction, Snacks Monster, for this match? Have you got a bet? Best bet for the game. Melinda asks, we'll move on after this, but thoughts for Cucurella for shots as well. I mean, we're talking about shots in this game quite a lot. It might well be a lot of individual players are worth looking at, both teams actually, if it transpires to how we expect it in terms of a league encounter. Last week, the shots didn't fly, but because it was different with the FA Cup. But Cucurella,
100%. 100%. Cucurella was on my list as potential shots angle tonight as well. He's his averages are really strong recently. He's been encouraged to move forward, sometimes even into the sort of the second striker role. Very sort of Pep Guardiola that is for a fullback from Maresca to push forward that far. But he's sort of encouraged to get into those dangerous areas, and his shot output has spiked recently. So even the Lamptey Cucurella double, if you really wanted to chase a price, I could see that they're both probably too big in the market. So you might as well combine some value with some value if you're looking for a little fullback special. I think, but the game obviously has to show a bit more life than the FA Cup game did the other day, I think, for these bets to have a chance. But Cucurella and Lamptey, I think I think Cucurella's around even money as well for a shot. So definitely can see potential in him. It's a good shout.
Charlie DeLucci is on about Chelsea most corners taken. Nigel actually did a really good bit of tactical breakdown on the Premier League show this week about corners for this game, more to do with Brighton and Chelsea, which is worth a look. And I think he did mention how Brighton don't have that many corners, so that could be an option there, Charlie, for sure. Maresca apparently said that the ex-Brighton manager was a better coach than the current one. That is, I mean, who do you take? Graham Potter, De Zerbi, or Herzler? Who would you take out of those three managers, chat?
Easy choice. If I want fun factor, you just go De Zerbi, don't you? I think. I mean, when they got that right under him at Brighton, they were absolutely fantastic to watch, and he's doing good things in France as well, isn't it, at the moment? So I would pick De Zerbi from an entertainment perspective, but longevity, probably you'd want the safe hands of Potter. I think he's going to get it right at West Ham, and I think he's a very capable coach at this level. It seems very hard to break down, I think. So good question, but I would just go for De Zerbi, I think, on that entertainment factor.
Snacks Monster, there it is. Prediction 2-0 to Brighton, I presume. And Minter for a shot on target, plus 114. That's going to be an interesting call, because I'm sure both teams score. Yes, is going to be a very, very popular pick for a lot of people in same game pies and stuff today. Okay, well, we'll be more on to English Championship and more Premier League action a bit later, but I'm going to talk about a few European games now on today. We've got Bundesliga action, Augsburg against RB Leipzig, and a matchup between two teams who I think are really, I struggle to get a read on them, actually, especially Leipzig at the minute. I need more consistency from them, which one win in their last 6 games against an Augsburg side who are actually unbeaten in 5. They've gone under 2.5 in 5 of the last 6. We might get some unders here, Lewis. Under 2.5 goals did tempt me at minus 114. Both teams score no might be actually a better one at plus 112. This is a really difficult game. What do you personally do? Because both of these two sides for me at the minute are in no bet territory. I don't fancy betting on either of the games because they're quite difficult. Do you just sort of have a watching brief, or if there's a certain price, do you take it, or are you just happy to no bet?
Oh, I'm more than happy. Sometimes the best bet is the no bet, isn't it? I think, and I'd always try and look at it that we can maybe learn something from the game, so it's not a complete waste of 90 minutes, if that makes sense. Because it is watching a game for in this. I've watched a lot of football in my time, Steve, and I need to be quite selective with what I do in terms of watching football these days. And it needs to have a reason for it, if that makes sense. So I need to be either financially invested or I need to be learning something about that team. So it's not always a betting angle that I'd be looking for, but when I can, I do like to watch as many teams as I can that I've got an interest in. Personally for my own betting and the tipping as well, but also for just my work as a journalist as well. I need to be sort of across lots of things going on. So no bet is always sometimes the best bet, isn't it? But I'd always like to try and learn something when I'm watching a match. That makes me sound quite cynical, boring old goat, doesn't it? I don't watch football for entertainment anymore, but it's sort of very ruthless, boring way of approaching watching football, I think. But that's the way I think you've got to go if you're trying to take it seriously and trying to find these all important angles that can make you money in the long term. So yeah, that's how I'd approach selecting which games to watch. I think maybe it's a good question though, Steve. Well, I enjoyed that one.
Well, you know what? I always get some people asking me, what hours do you work? What do you do here? And if I'm watching a game with them, say even in a pub, I'm saying I'm working now. I'm looking at these teams. I'm trying to get an edge, even if I've not got a bet on the game or whatever. I'm working out next week. Am I going to be on them? That sort of thing. The money is with Leipzig here. 93% of the tickets, 88% of the money. And 95% of the tickets in the over-under market are on the over. I just feel this is a bit lazy, maybe from this is maybe a bit of lazy public money because it's not a guarantee with Leipzig or the overs. But the last time I bet on a Leipzig away game, I was actually on the under in Bochum, and it was 3-0 by the 15th minute, and it ended 3-3. So they completely did me over. So I'm really nervous about that. Augsburg are a team I rarely get involved in all season. Another team that I had a shocking bet with before Christmas, Kiel. I was on them to win and they lost 5-1. So happy to not get involved in that game. I don't know. I mean, this is the irony of the fixtures here. We've got a Liga game. There's actually been a massive move in this match in terms of the odds, by the way. But Brest on Valentine's Day, you can't make it up, can you, Lewis? If you fancy a piece of Brest today, you can actually get plus money now, plus 116 with Bet Rivers. Auxerre having backed in to plus.
It's a juicy price, that one. Juicy. Very juicy.
Very juicy indeed. This is a tricky one because I actually would probably have opposed Brest against most teams in the league at the minute because they're in the middle of the Champions League fixture against PSG. I know they're 3-0 down. A lot of people will say they're out of that competition, but trust me, they'll give it their absolute everything to try and at least give a good account of themselves in Paris this coming up in a few days' time. Auxerre are winless since, I think, the end of November. So they haven't had a win since Thanksgiving, basically. Along those lines. Not a team I think anyone's really trusting in France at the minute. So again, it's do you go with the team sort of more in the difficult spot, or do you go with the team in poor form? I really am struggling here. 79% of the money is on Brest. 93% of the money is on the over line. I suppose if I was to bet on this, it would be probably on the over 2.5 goals. That would be a lean at plus 102, just simply because Auxerre have been conceding quite a lot recently. And I mean, with Brest, you never know. They can be anything on the day. What sort of 11 are we going to get out there? We don't know. This is very, very tricky, I think, for the Brest game.
Such a shame they drew PSG, wasn't it, in the Champions League? I mean, that's the problem with the new format is it doesn't restrict teams from being able to play each other from the same country in the last 16, I think, which is a shame, because an incredible story for them to get to that stage, and then they just bow out to the team they lose to most weeks. It's just one of those unfortunate situations, I think, with the way the draw has panned out. Great for people like me who are on PSG to win it outright, but for Brest, just the whole story and it's just going out with a bit of a whimper, I think. Unfortunately, it's a sad end to that story, I think, in the Champions League.
But one of the big edges they had, Lewis, in the Champions League was their unpredictability. Teams didn't know much about them, etc., etc. And then this is the worst draw they could have had. And for PSG, like a free hit, because they're used to Brest, got a great record against them. Yeah, it was like a nightmare for Brest and a dream for PSG. But yeah, that tie pretty much looks over. If I had to go a score line, do you know what? I'm actually going to predict Brest to win this 2-1, just because I think Auxerre are not very great at the minute, but I wouldn't actually bank on it. If I was going to take a bet, it would be the over. I do have some a double suggestion coming up, and this is regarding the Serie A match and the La Liga game. We've got Torino visiting Bologna in Italy. Now, for me, my best bet of the day would come in this game, and it would be on the under 2 Asian goal line. Torino have an unbelievable under record. I think only one of their last 16 in Serie A have gone over 2.5. They miss too many chances. Generally don't concede that many. I've had a lot of 1-1 draws, so your push potential here is pretty high for an actual push on the under 2 Asian goal line. But this would be my best single bet of the day. Definitely under 2 Asian goals with Bet Rivers at it's about even money, I think, plus 105. You could go the 2.25 goal line if you wanted at minus 136, but the chances of a 1-0 either way or a 0-0, I think, are quite high. Bologna seem to have gone back in their shell again. There was a period around Christmas where they were involved in high-scoring games, but now it's gone really tight again. Minus 132 on the money line for them. That is probably the most likely result for me, 1-0 Bologna. Just Torino don't score enough goals, but they are unbeaten in 6 games. So I think that is well worth looking at. And it's no surprise to me to see 62% of the money is on the under. Now, you don't often get that in any games, really, because everyone loves to bet on overs. 70% of the tickets are on the over, but the professional money's on the under, and that really doesn't surprise me one bit. Lewis, 98% of the money is on Bologna. And the La Liga game, I actually think it's worth doubling up under 2.5 goals here for this match here, Girona, Getafe, and Bologna, Torino. Under 2.5 goals, double with Bet Rivers at plus 126. Getafe, the king of unders in La Liga, 20 out of 23 under 2.5 goals. They have had a couple of overs recently, but generally just defend so well. Both goalkeepers are pretty strong here. Girona might want to try and make it a bit of a shootout. I could see this sort of match actually containing a lot of shots, maybe a lot of low XG shots, chances that are missed. Decent watch, even if it's a low-scoring game. But I wouldn't take the single under 2 goals here. I would rather take the single in the Bologna game, but combine it as a double Girona Getafe on the unders. I bet you've not really seen me take many unders, have you, Lewis? On your time
it's just one of those. I was thinking I was talking to Nigel Seeley then, but no, it is you. It is Steve Wyss. But no, that sounds like a good play. Would you, in those scenarios, what's your view on? Because if you're looking at the unders, both teams to score no, obviously is a bigger price. Your views on taking that instead of unders? Sometimes I'm guessing you did mention the 1-1 scoreline. I think in the first game, so you'd want that onside in this situation, would you?
I would fear the 1-1 more in Bologna Torino because Torino have so many of them. But I would fear like a 3-0 win for Girona in the other game more. So probably both teams score no in the Girona match would be an edge over under. But I would go definitely under line in Bologna Torino, and it's the same with the Leipzig game. I always ask. It's a decision I make when I'm looking on the unders. I'm always so tempted to take the chance on the bigger price with the both teams to score no. But then the way I normally calculate is that what is the chances of the 1-1, because the 1-1 is obviously the one that can really kill you in that situation. So I always like to get your view on like the strategy behind whether to go for the unders or the both teams to score no. Because I'm always like to sort of edge towards the bigger price, and that is probably to my detriment really in the longer term. But I always like to try and chance that arm at the both teams to score no. But it's all about decisions, isn't it? All about decisions. Yeah, I remember I once took both teams to score no in one of the Scandinavian leagues. I can't remember who it was. It might have been maybe one of the Stockholm clubs, IIK, and obviously I fancied like a 0-0. Went both teams score no, and it ended 6-0. Cashed, but kind of caught it so wrong. So wrong, but cashed. It all balances out in the end, though, doesn't it? You've had probably enough bad beats in your time, so you got to take them when they come. Absolutely. Yeah, I know, not too many of them, but I'd say under 2 Asian goals, Bologna Torino. That would be my best single bet of the day, and I do think under 2.5 double parlay there. Bologna Torino, Girona Getafe under 2.5 goals plus 126, and then you're cashing even if both matches do end in a 1-1 draw. Okay, let's move on. English Championship. QPR Derby. All sorts of shenanigans going on in the Championship this week. Managerial-wise, Derby County involved in this. QPR are the favourites, though, this evening in West London there. Minus money favourites. What do you think? I'm actually plus money now, plus 102. Just start with the money line, Lewis, and actual match result here. I mean, which direction would you go in?
Well, QPR got a good home form recently. I mean, they had a strange season, started really badly and looked like they were going to have a really long, hard season just to stay up. But they've really turned the corner under the manager, Marti Cifuentes. Done a really good job. They've stuck with him, and I think he's one of the best managers in the Championship, actually, pound for pound. I think his sort of the metrics behind his style of football always seem to come out very positively. And I do think his teams, especially this QPR team, have shown signs of being a very good team on their day. So, I'm surprised because Derby obviously changed their manager this. Surprised at the QPR price a little bit, to be honest. I thought they'd be shorter to just with their recent home form has been quite strong. I think they won 6 of the last 7, and Derby horrendous form across the board. Really, that's why they decided to sack Paul Warne and bring in John Eustace this week. Strange one, wasn't it? Him leaving Blackburn Rovers, who are going for promotion. It's got
to be money related, surely. Or, I mean, I know the official line was he felt he wasn't being supported by Blackburn, but that was one of the weirdest moves. I mean, Derby are in freefall, really, result-wise. So, oof. Yeah,
it's not. They brought in 2 players in the window, though, Blackburn. They brought Emmanuel Dennis in, and he wouldn't have been cheap, I wouldn't have thought. So I'm not really buying that from Eustace about the fact he wasn't back. There's obviously something gone on behind the scenes or a bigger there's much more. If you read it between the lines, probably there's more to that story that meets the eye at the moment, I think. But great bit of business from Derby though to get a manager of his experience and know-how in the Championship for just £500,000 worth of compensation. That if that keeps them up, that's a really good investment. And I think they've got a better chance of staying up, certainly with him over Paul Warne, who's shown a couple of times now maybe he's just not quite good enough for the Championship. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a shrewd move from Derby, but a very strange one to analyse from the manager himself's point of view. But maybe something will come out in the wash eventually. But yeah, it doesn't look very favourably on the way Blackburn are run, I don't think.
No. I mean, the good thing with Eustace is coming into Derby is we know exactly how they're going to play. He has a very distinct style, tactical style, and you're going to basically use that hopefully to your advantage here with the bet that you're going to suggest for the game. Yeah,
the under 2.5 goal line. A lot of under shouts here today, isn't there? Which is this is where the value lies most of the time in these matches, I think. But it's very heavily favoured by the market here, isn't it? Under 2.5. And the Championship has been sort of an under 2.5 haven this season, really, a bit of an unders paradise. Just with teams like Burnley, Millwall, Sheffield United being so good defensively, and a lot of dross really in the middle bunch of that Championship, especially in forward areas. I've seen the unders line quite regularly, I think, in the Championship. 56% of games in the Championship have gone under 2.5 this season, which is a really high strike rate in this sort of modern era of attack-minded football, I think. And it has been a bit of a dour watch at times this year, the Championship.
You know what I think it is, Lewis? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's the schedule. There's too many matches. The players cannot perform at the level like 10 years ago. The tactics and style have changed. Like you said, it's very attack-minded, but to keep that up, you need like a week of rest if you can. I think it's the schedule. I think unders is a big reason. And also a lot of rotation, but sorry
absolutely. No, that's it's a fair point. It's just what is the answer to that? You get just stretch the season out a little bit further, maybe, or do you cut the amount of teams in the table down? I mean, it's a very difficult situation to be in, but you are right. There is absolutely too much football, especially at the top level with on the back of the European Championships in the summer. You're seeing the injuries absolutely racking up now across the teams, especially the players that have been going in the summer. Akanji went down. He's out now for nearly the season, isn't he? He played for Switzerland in the summer. So there's just so many examples of players that have not had a rest that are really, really struggling this season. So I could definitely see there's a definite argument for there is too many games, but where do we go from there? It's a case of the people making the decision to try to make as much money as possible through their product. So you can see where they're coming from. But here we go back. They're different argument that, but back to this game, and you have to get the unders on side in this game where Derby involved. I don't think the change of manager is going to change anything about their style of play. As you mentioned, he's a very sort of pragmatic, gets teams organised, hard to beat, and that's what Derby are and have been for a long time actually. So they're not going to change the way they're going to play. 7 of their last 8 matches have gone under 2.5, and they've failed to score in 5 of their last 7 and scored just 2 goals in those 7 games. So there's a good chance that that's going to continue the sort of the lower goal output, I think, despite the change of manager. But they've got a very good defensive process, Derby, all season. They've, in terms of expected goals against, they've actually got the 12th best record in the division. So I think there's probably quite a lot for Eustace to work with there at the back, and he should be able to improve them even further defensively, I think. So I want to get the unders line on side. It's just too short for me to get involved in a single, so I just need to boost it a little bit. And I'm gonna do this through the Bet Builder or the same game parlay.
SGP,
the SGP,
we like SGP suddenly on this channel.
We do. It's especially when I really fancy the unders here, and we need to boost that up because it's too short to be advising and getting involved with, I think, for me. So I think the easy way of doing this is just to put the QPR corner line into the bet as well, because I think the way the game is going to pan out here is Derby going to drop into quite a low block, I think, under the new manager. They're going to try and keep things tight, and that's going to lead to a lot of corner winning opportunities for QPR. If you look at Eustace's data as manager of Blackburn, they shipped 5.9 corners per game this season, which is the 4th most of any team. So he and Blackburn were one of the, he's left them very high in the division. So they're one of the better teams, but they do ship a lot of corners, just the way that he sets his teams up. And QPR's recent record at winning corners is unbelievable. In the last 4 games, they've won 10.7 corners per game, which is an extraordinary figure. And I think they'll be taking the game to Derby. Like to get the ball wide. They score a lot of goals from set pieces as well. So it's definitely part of their game plan to try and win corners. And I think they should be able to win 5 or more corners quite comfortably here. So if we add the 4.5 over 4.5 QPR corners line to that under 2.5 goals line in a same game parlay, we actually get to an even money, and I think that's a really nice bet to attack with 2 very likely outcomes in our favour here. So yeah, I want to get with the under, Steve. It was just a bit too short for an official play, an official recommendation. So just having a look at the QPR corners line of late, and you just have to throw their corners line into the mix, just with the way that the game's going to play out. I think with Derby happy to sit and soak up the pressure. So yeah, under 2.5 goals and over 4.5 QPR corners, even money.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, under 2.5 goals is now minus 230 on its own. On the Asian goal line, we're knocking on the door of a 1.75 line, which in the Championship is very unusual. Very unusual. I mean, it's the sort of line you'd get in South America, Argentina or somewhere like that. Effie Borowski says Girona played 6 games in the last 20 days, so Getafe for him on the draw, no bet. Meninda's thinking any shots in this game for Derby centre-backs, maybe QPR centre-backs as well, if there's a lot of corners. That's a great angle on QPR corners, actually. It made me think, just a suggestion there, you can get plus 200 on over 7.5 QPR corners. Maybe it's worth looking at that.
Obviously, you're relying on game state, aren't you? Game state a bit. You don't want them to get an early goal or anything like that. But Derby, as I say, they've got good defensive record, so they can soak up this pressure and keep teams out. So you think with the likely direction of travel towards the Derby goal, corners definitely at play. And yeah, that seems like a big price actually. Just you could taking the corner line on its own, just based on QPR's last 4 games where they're winning an insane amount of corners. 10.7 over 4 games is unbelievable, really. So yeah.
Eustace doesn't mind conceding corners because he loves coaching against them. His side, he will back his team not to concede from them, basically. And at the other end, he's very good on set pieces, Eustace. So I can see where Meninda might be coming from there with the Derby centre back shots. If they do get some at the other end, it will be a big focus on him. Such an annoying manager. Whenever they played against Leeds, absolutely hated playing against Eustace. Thankfully, we played Derby twice. Okay, Premier League weekend. I've got to pick your brains about a couple of games. First one is Liverpool Wolves. We're actually on the same hymn sheet here because I thought this was a big price as well. Lots of different opinions going around about the Reds after the midweek Merseyside derby. Some saying maybe they might fold a little bit, maybe crack a bit. The games are catching up. Others are saying they'll shake it off very, very quickly. Wolves are awful. Going to be a very convincing win. I was quite keen to take on Liverpool myself. And you are as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Wolves were awful. I'm not sure they're awful anymore. I think the change in manager has given them a huge chance of staying up now, I think, just from what we've seen so far. So, yeah, I'm very keen on getting them on side, actually, here at Anfield, with the Asian handicap. Just for reasons, Liverpool have got such a relentless 10 days coming up in the Premier League. It's a very strange fixture list coming up for this time of year. They've got 4 games coming up in the next 10 days. So they've got Wolves first, then they've got Aston Villa away on Wednesday. Then they go to Man City, and then they've got Newcastle at home. And that's quite a scary run for them at a time where also you're going to throw the Champions League last 16 into the mix as well. And just coming into this game on the back of, I'd say, 2 poor performances now, Liverpool. I know you've got to take the opposition and the team selection into account here, the way that they played a very weakened team at Plymouth, but they created just 0.4 worth of expected goals from open play against Plymouth in that game. And then they went to Everton and they didn't play the occasion at all well, I didn't think. They created just 0.65 expected goals, total expected goals at Everton. They're very lucky to be even 2-1 up at that time, I thought. I know it was a very dramatic ending in the end, and Everton actually got their rewards, I thought, and they deserved the point for restricting Liverpool to such little in the final third. So, yeah, I mentioned the manager. I mentioned the manager, Vitor Pereira, is coming at Wolves, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from the way they're set up actually without the ball. I think their defensive metrics have improved greatly under him. I think he's a very good manager at making a short-term impact. He's probably a little bit too combustible, I think, to be a long-term solution for Wolves. He's going to fall out with too many players and people at the club, I think, to make this a long-term appointment for Wolves. But in the short term, I think it's going to work very nicely for them. And you can see that through their defensive numbers already. I mean, under Gary O'Neill, they conceded 2.5 goals per game this season, and that's now down to 1.5 under Pereira. And the shots faced data as well, that's down from 14.6 to 12.4. And I just really like what I saw against Aston Villa in their home match, in their at Molyneux the other week. Restricted Villa just 0.57 worth of expected goals. Very convincing 2-0 win. Really good without the ball. And I don't think the market has factored in Wolves' defensive improvements. Because Liverpool are expected to score 3 goals by the market here. And they're only plus 170 to score 4 or more goals, which is, I think that's a little disrespectful to the work that Pereira's doing at Wolves here defensively. And they're a much harder team to score against now. And so I wanted to get Wolves on side. And I really like the price on the Asian handicap with Wolves with a +2 head start around even money. I know Liverpool have got the players to take a team to the cleaners in like 10 minutes. So this bet could be over. You could be sitting pretty at one stage and then 10 minutes later, they've scored 3 goals in the blink of an eye. But I just don't think Liverpool are playing with that sort of intensity and verve at the moment to do that to a team. So we only lose money, don't we, if Liverpool win by 3 or more goals on this Asian handicap bet, which I think is a very nice investment at even money. And we get our stakes refunded if Wolves lose by 2, and if we win if Wolves lose by 1, or draw or win. So yeah, I'm just not sure Liverpool going to be at full throttle here after that emotional derby game as well. A little bit of pressure growing on, isn't there? A little bit with the fixture list coming up as well. I just think this looks a game where just Arne Slot will just want to get out with any sort of win, and a 1-goal win will be absolutely fine, especially if Arsenal have won on the Saturday, just to turn up the heat up on them a little bit, with there be 4 points behind them. So yeah, really keen on getting Wolves on side here, Steve, and I think you agree as well, which is always a good thing to hear.
Yeah, I might sound a bit like Dan Roebuck here, but I really like this bet. Dan does like quite a lot of bets this weekend, but the +2 Asian. Liverpool have only won, I think, 3 games in the last 12 in all comps by more than a 2-goal margin. One of those was Accrington Stanley. Who were they?
I resisted it. It was too obvious. I resisted it there.
One was against Ipswich and the other was against Spurs. So does that even count? So, this is, it had to be +2 for me on the Asian line for Wolves here. And look, you're on the show. We've got to ask you about one of your favourite Premier League teams, as always here, Manchester City. -109 to beat Newcastle. I think, am I right in saying they've beaten Newcastle at home in the last 9 fixtures here at the Etihad? Newcastle, I don't think, have scored here since 2018 or something like that. So based on head-to-head, you would take Manchester. If you were a head-to-head backer, you'd be all over Man City here. I am not a head-to-head bettor very often, so I'm willing to ignore that. Are Manchester City still very opposable in your opinion?
100%. No point jumping off the train yet, I don't think, unless I see some evidence that they've fixed their problems out of possession and how they can keep the ball a bit better and stop teams from just constantly running in transition at their goal. Then I'm quite happy to keep riding this Man City train. There's no need to jump off yet, especially with the market really is quite positive on them. They went off so short against Real Madrid in midweek, and the people backing Man City nearly got their money, and it would have been completely unjustified, I think, if Man City would have won that game. So a bit of footballing karma there came with Real Madrid deservedly winning that game. But yeah, I still want to take on Man City wherever I can. I think this is a really, really good spot for Newcastle because they've got such a good record against the elite teams. They're very well set up under Eddie Howe to stifle the better teams, and their record against teams that qualified for Europe last season, and if you throw Nottingham Forest into the mix, who are 3rd in the Premier League this year, they've lost just 1 of those 13 matches this season, and that was against Chelsea, where they were edged out 2-1 in a very tight game. So really like their form in these sort of matchups. In those 13 matches, they've averaged 1.92 goals per game as well, scoring 2 or more in 9 of those, and that's a really impressive return when you're considering the sort of level of opposition they're going up against. And there's a common theme developing in all those matches. And it's that man, isn't it? Alexander Isak. He's played in 12 of those games and he scored in 10 of them, which is a phenomenal record. He's just a big game player, isn't he? The better the opposition, the better he performs. And I just think there's evidence to suggest that on current form and what we've seen from the last 25 games, this Newcastle team are just a better team than Manchester City. Yet we're getting Man City hovering around even money to win this game. I'm just not having that. You've got to get Newcastle on side here. And again, I'm going to combine another bet using the same game parlay bet builder. I think it's worth putting value upon value again here. So Newcastle on the double chance, so to avoid defeat, and Isak to score any time. It's +230. I love that bet. I think it's one of the best bets I've seen this weekend, that Newcastle to avoid defeat and Isak to score. one of the best bets of the year so far. I'd probably go that far at that price. I just think when you're running those numbers and how good Newcastle are against these sort of teams, you're getting a really lovely price there, combining two very likely scenarios, I think. So yeah, plus 230, Isak to score, Newcastle double chance, absolutely all over that weekend. That will make or break my weekend, I think, Steve.
Yeah, if you just want to take Isak on his own to score with Bet Rivers, that is at plus 133. Haaland, by the way, plus 102 in the same market. I did mention that Newcastle don't have a great record here, but in the past, there would have been, minimum plus one Asian handicap, possibly plus two as well. And they've often kept the games quite close. This is obviously the most favoured they've been with the books at the Etihad for several years. So this is where head-to-heads records sometimes just can be very much overlooked. Really like those angles, Lewis. Your best bet, though, for Friday. Remind us of that pick you've got in the Brighton game on the shop market.
Yeah, it's Tariq Lamptey over 0.5 shots. Anything above even money I'd be taking. And also in the QPR game, quite like the under 2.5 line and thrown in QPR under 4.5 corners to get to even money as well. So those two bets for this evening, and hopefully we can get lucky on Valentine's Day, Steve. That's the aim, isn't it? It's always the aim.
This is certainly the aim. I forgot to mention, actually, 75% of the money is on the under in that QPR game. That is probably the most percentage of money I've ever seen on one of these splits I've been given by our traders. For an under, that is how popular it is. Nil-nil detector must be beeping for a lot of people in that game. And from what I think in Europe in general this evening, I don't think the goals will flow too often, apart from maybe in the Brighton game, maybe in the Brest game, because my best bet is in that Torino fixture, Bologna Torino under 2 Asian goals. I like the under 2.5 double Girona Getafe. In addition to that Italian game, and if I had to go in a direction, I would go under in the Bundesliga game as well. But that's a much more trickier one. But brilliant show as always. Thank you very much for your time, Lewis. Thanks for everyone's support on the live shows this week. We've had some great numbers, loads of comments. Do hit that like button if you've not already. If you're new to the channel, a subscription would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the newsletter as well. I actually had a newsletter winner back on the trail with a newsletter winner yesterday in the Conference League. One of the few games I actually got right in the Serie A against Apoel match. Nigel had a great newsletter winner on in the Real Madrid game. Real Madrid draw no bet. They were massive, plus 130 draw no bet against City. But have a great weekend, Lewis. Enjoy your Valentine's Day evening. And I will. Yeah, I will see. We're and you on again next Friday. So I look forward to that.
Same again.
Betting Weekly Live on Monday. Dan Roebuck's going to be with Jack Wright. But watch the great shows we've got over the weekend on Because We Win. Betting Weekly Live, and gamble responsibly and absolutely smash it to pieces this weekend, guys. Hit winners everywhere. Good luck.